Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the colors by the United States Navy Ceremonial Guard and remain standing for our national anthem and the invocation. Advance the colors. Retire the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Ben Sanford, Chaplain, United States Navy, will now offer our invocation.
Let us pray. Lord God, throughout the ages, there have been people who have maintained a relentless curiosity, which has sparked exploration, innovation, trade, and connection. Rather than an inward focus marked by fear, their expanding outward vision has been marked by hopeful possibilities. Today, we gather to honor the character of maritime peoples throughout the ages. Thank you for the efforts of the Navy League to promote the connection between defense industry leaders and major military decision makers. We specifically ask for your blessing upon the sea services, whose men and women strive to protect the peace while deterring bad actors around the world. Give our sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen the strength of spirit necessary to accomplish their mission with honor. And now we ask for your blessing upon the food we are about to partake and our time around these tables. May the connections we nurture through curious conversation multiply hopeful possibilities in our world. Amen.
Please be seated. The United States Navy Band Brass Quintet will now perform a medley of the Sea Service songs. As you hear your branch represented, please stand proudly as we continue with the Sea Services medley. Thank
Let there be no doubt in anybody's mind that we have absolutely the most powerful, lethal, capable, and flexible Navy and Marine Corps the world has ever seen.
People out on the waterfront running weld beads or pulling cable or on the production lines assembling components, that they're part of something huge, and we just need more of them.
It became poignantly obvious to CNO Franchetti that the Navy that she will have during her tenure as the CNO will not fundamentally change in size. So we have a responsibility to wring out every ounce of readiness we can to be ready to match these peer adversaries.
We must leverage the incredible capability that's resident in our commercial tech sector in order to meet the strategic imperative facing the nation.
I think Congress and whoever's in the White House needs to start putting their money where their mouth is. We know that the world is not a safe place right now, and we need to make sure that our Navy is reflective of the fight that we're in right now.
We need to make next year, and I know our appropriators have started down that path, is we have to close the gap on junior enlisted salaries.
The CEO of Electric Boat announced a hiring target of 5,750 people, which people thought he was like out of his mind when he said that. That's a bigger number than the Yard recruited during World War II and the Cold War in a given year.
So the reason that DON OSVP, or the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Program, is here today is to let industry know, especially small businesses, that the Navy is open. We're here to do business.
Attending these networking sessions is an excellent way to meet people and understand the process.
It really helps to network and work with other small businesses so that we have the size to solve the bigger problem.
And ladies and gentlemen, Congress must pass this supplemental to support our brothers and sisters in Ukraine this week. Our United States Navy has attacked and we have conducted strikes like we haven't seen in many ways since World War II. So how about we get out right now and give a hand of applause to all our men and women serving in the Red Sea and across the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the CEO of the Navy League of the United States and 13th Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, Mike Stevens.
I would say those are pretty powerful words from Secretary Del Toro yesterday, especially this last piece that we just witnessed. We're grateful to him and all our speakers for preparing such insightful remarks. Well, good afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure for the Navy League to host you over the past 3 days, and we hope that Sea Air Space 2024 has exceeded all of your expectations. Thank you very much for joining us for today's final luncheon. It's been an absolutely incredible week, and we would like to take a moment to again thank our sponsors, exhibitors, industry professionals, attendees, and all participants for making this year's Sea Air Space such an amazing experience. But most importantly, thank you to all of our service members and their families for their incredible sacrifice to keep America free and this world we live in a safer place. Now please, everyone, let's give a warm welcome to our 52nd National President of the Navy League of the United States, Mr. Chris Townsend.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome to the last dining event of Sea Air Space 2024. I hope you've had a wonderful experience. Folks may be lying to me, but everybody I talk to seems blown away by the show. We've been doing this for 59 years, and by all accounts, this is the best
sea airspace we've ever had. So we hope you enjoyed it. But if I could ask now, all of this is because of Mike Stevens and our absolutely incredible headquarters staff. Could I get a round of applause for them putting this incredible show on? Echoing Mike's words, thank you to everyone involved for a successful sea airspace. We're on final approach for a smooth landing, just like I like it, but we're not done yet. The show floor is open until 1500, 3 o'clock today, and we have one final amazing speaker who will wrap up our sea airspace. It's my pleasure to introduce this afternoon's speaker, Dr. Laura Taylor-Kale, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy. Dr. Taylor-Kale is the first Senate-confirmed Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy. In this role, her portfolio includes oversight of industrial base resilience and innovation, small business programs, and industrial base development, industrial policy, DoD CHIPS coordination, and international engagement. Dr. Laura Taylor-Kale was confirmed in March of 2023 as the first Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy. She advises the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment and other senior defense leaders on all matters pertaining to industrial base resilience and innovation, small business programs, industrial base development, industrial policy, and international engagement. Dr. Taylor-Kale is a policy executive, strategist, and organizational behavioral scholar with over 2 decades of experience at the intersection of economic diplomacy, international development finance, technical innovation, and national security. She most recently served as the Fellow for Innovation and Economic Competitiveness at the Council on Foreign Relations and served in the Obama administration from 2014 to 2017 as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Manufacturing in the International Trade Administration. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm welcome for Dr. Laura D. Taylor-Kale. It's a pleasure. Thank you. It's all yours.
Good afternoon. Oh, I mean, they did serve coffee. I'll try that again. Good afternoon. Wonderful. I will say that this, to me, is the best sea airspace exposition, and maybe it's because it's my first, but I am absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'd also like to acknowledge the Secretary of the Navy who was here yesterday, as well as Honorable Eric Raven, Admiral Franchetti, Admiral Fagan, and all the distinguished visitors and guests who've been here. I'd also like to especially thank the Navy League and their team for all their hard work in really getting this event together. As I noted, I'm delighted to be here in part because I see a lot of friends and folks that I've met over the past year in this role in the audience, and I know that we are all committed to the same mission. This year's theme of integrated maritime power is not only timely, it's also the right approach that we need to face the challenges that beset us and our allies and partners around the world. Maritime power also plays an essential role in both integrated deterrence, as the department has noted in the National Defense Strategy, but also in economic deterrence, which is something that my office has been talking a lot about. In the US alone, seaborne trade generates $5.4 trillion annually and supports 31 million American jobs. The world's oceans are used not just for maritime trade, but also for information and data exchange through undersea cables. And we've recently seen the impact even of a relatively small group like the Houthis can have on maritime traffic. This afternoon, I will discuss how re-energizing America's industrial might and meshing that with the industrial power of our allies and partners around the world will help enable us not only to get integrated maritime power, but also economic deterrence. Today, industrial policy is embraced. The overlap between national security, foreign policy, technology, and economics has increased. And as noted, my office sits really at that intersection of those areas. And the Department of Defense has really executed industrial policy really since the beginning of the department, certainly since the World Wars. And as noted, I'm the first Senate-confirmed person in this role. And though we're relatively new, I think the fact that Congress and the administration chose to elevate this role really demonstrates and illustrates the importance of defense industrial policy and the work that we all do together. In my view, industrial policy is absolutely key to economic deterrence, especially when it's used for a range of economic incentives and interventions aimed at shaping and guiding resources needed to promote national security. In that vein, earlier this year, we published the department's first ever National Defense Industrial Strategy, the NDIS. The NDIS articulates a vision to create a fully modernized defense industrial ecosystem that can develop the needed warfighting capabilities that we need at speed, at cost, and at scale. Make no mistake, this will be a large undertaking, requiring that government work together within the government, but also with industry, with organizations outside, with academia, and also work together with our allies and partners. It will take time. We didn't get the industrial-based challenges that we all talk about overnight. It came as a result of decades of policy and business decisions, as well as resourcing decisions. The National Defense Industrial Strategy is focused on the actions that we must take in the next 3 to 5 years to really create the strength that we need to achieve this maritime trade and economic deterrence. I should also note that many of the actions, we list 25 different actions in the National Defense Industrial Strategy. Many of those actions are already underway. Many of them are underway in the Navy, I will also note. Government and industry alike are now working on key investments, workforce initiatives, and developing and using new acquisition tools and strategies. My team continues to move forward with the industrial strategy by engaging internal, interagency, industry, and international stakeholders while simultaneously developing an actionable, classified implementation plan. The implementation plan will be a living document. We are working on it literally as we speak. And I expect that it will be completed at some point later this summer. And once it is done and it's received senior-most department approval and leadership, I do anticipate publishing a unclassified summary of it. The National Defense Industrial Strategy has 4 strategic priorities. 1, building resilient supply chains. 2, investing in workforce readiness. 3, leveraging flexible acquisition strategies, and 4, enabling economic deterrence. And today I'll focus on the first 2 and the last one, resilient supply chains, workforce readiness, and economic deterrence. I'll focus on those because I think those are some of the areas where it's the most applicable to maritime power and where I think we can do a lot of work well together. The first priority, resilient supply chains, seeks to invest in and strengthen supply chains enabled in order to be able to securely produce the products, the services, and technologies that we need now and in the future. One way to improve supply chain resilience is to incentivize industry. And my office, to that vein, manages the Defense Production Act and the Industrial Base Analysis and Sustainment programs. These programs make targeted investments in the industrial base and in critical areas in the supply chain. So think, for instance, solid rocket motors or critical chemicals that are needed for weapon systems and critical materials. Through these programs last year, we invested more than $1 billion in critical minerals and materials, castings and forgings, and microelectronic supply chains. We also have strengthened the workforce by partnering on development and training programs. The services and other parts of DoD, such as our research and engineering colleagues, DARPA and DIU, are all making investments that support resilient supply chains. But I would like to note that both the recently passed FY24 defense appropriations and the recently released President's FY25 budget requests include billions of dollars in supply chain investments to include munitions, including critical maritime strike capabilities, shipyard and submarine industrial base improvements, and workforce development initiatives. Another way to help build industrial base resilience is to engage with our allies and partners, especially our close ones, to expand global defense production and increase supply chain resilience. We are acting on this right now. AUKUS is a prime example. We've worked with Congress to make it easier for our defense industrial base to work closely and collaboratively with industry in Australia and the United Kingdom. Australia is also working to manufacture guided multiple launch rocket system munitions, GMLRS. Norway is expanding its capacity to produce 155 millimeter artillery rounds, and Germany's Rheinmetall is working to build a munitions factory in the Ukraine, just to name a few examples. And we in the department continue to engage our allies and partners. DoD recently announced bilateral agreements with India and Japan to co-produce and acquire advanced capabilities to strengthen deterrence across the Indo-Pacific. And we are also working to implement major defense initiatives with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia. So the second strategic priority, workforce readiness, will allow for us to provide for a more skilled and sufficiently staffed workforce that can aid the production and capability development that we're all very interested in and talking about. As we all know, there is a global challenge for skilled workforce. I hear this all the time, not just from American industry and our colleagues here, but also from international industry as well as our international partners. Younger generations generally show less interest in pursuing manufacturing careers or lack the science, technology, engineering, and math skills needed for industrial work. The Navy, I am pleased to note, is really leading in this area. I see that the annual Sea Air Space STEM Expo is running concurrently, and it's also in its 7th year at this conference. The other services, as well as other parts of DoD, are also addressing workforce needs. For example, the Army releases Organic Industrial Base Modernization Implementation Plan last year that will focuses on modernizing facilities, processes, and the workforce needed to bring the OIB into the 21st century. To help grow these essential skills, the DoD is nearly doubling investments in casting and forging compared to last year. The role of steel castings is evident in practically every aspect of maritime industry, from the construction of offshore platforms to hulls, propellers, rudders, and more. Through national workforce initiatives like the I always have trouble with this word, Metallurgical Engineering Trades Apprenticeship and Learning Program, or METAL, which runs out of my office's IBAS program, the DoD is introducing younger generations to careers in casting and forging, something that I actually think is really cool and fascinating that we're doing it, and we're oftentimes using advanced technologies to help spur interest in these areas. These workshops show students how 3D printing or additive manufacturing can impact the future of casting. Education and training will inspire innovation and future trends to drive the maritime industry forward. I am also pleased to note that this year, the Navy's Submarine Industrial Base Program team, together with a critical set of DoD suppliers, had held a series of workforce trade skills events in key maritime centers. The Talent Pipeline program, now in its third year, celebrates members who have completed trade skills training and will launch careers at small and medium-sized defense industrial base suppliers. I don't know how many of you all have been part of these programs, but I encourage you to do so, even if you haven't. What we are seeing is particularly around workforce development, that the sooner young folks can get exposed to the kinds of work that are happening in a lot of our production lines, and much earlier, even middle schoolers, the more likely we are to actually bridge the gap that we have in workforce. The program's objectives is to sustain a maritime and defense industrial base focused talent pipeline and meet the need to hire 100,000 new skilled trade workers into the submarine industrial base over the next 10 years. For these first two National Defense Industrial Strategy priorities, I've gone into a bit of detail to demonstrate how what we are already doing aligns with our vision and ways that we can continue to bolster these priorities. I'll talk about the last strategic priority, economic deterrence. I'll be a bit broader because much of this is really about how to promote a fair, effective market mechanisms that support a resilient defense industrial ecosystem among our U.S. And close international allies and partners. Economic deterrence aligns best with Secretary Del Toro's vision of maritime statecraft, which encompasses a whole-of-government effort to build U.S. and allied maritime power. Taking this a step further, we in the acquisition side, we say production aids deterrence, and really a strong industrial base is a deterrent. The NDIS strategizes to enable production at scale, speed, and cost. Think about some of the ways we are integrating allied industrial bases now to enable economic deterrence. I mentioned AUKUS. Note that Congress has also named Australia and the UK as domestic sources eligible for the Defense Production Act. So companies in those countries, as well as in Canada, can apply for DPA grants. And our newly stood up Defense Industrial Base Consortium, OTA, Other Transaction Authority, also accepts proposals from international partners from the UK, Canada, and Australia. Co-production, something that we hear a lot about these days, and co-sustainment are also examples that I noted earlier with partners in Australia, Japan, and India, as well as others. And really, co-production and co-sustainment can show a way of having international integration that supports economic deterrence. DoD currently has at least 17 security of supply arrangements with international partners that help ensure mutual supply of defense goods and services. Probably haven't mentioned that yet, but the department is also expanding the joint all-domain command and control capability to allies and partners with the addition of combined to the front. And so now we have the CJADC2. Let's explore what expanding the role of the Navy as an economic trade driver in the Indo-Pacific could mean. For example, fostering economic ties introduces new markets and opportunities for investment and creating American jobs. In February, Secretary Del Toro traveled to Japan and South Korea to encourage investment in shipbuilding. He emphasized the need for attracting the most advanced shipbuilders in the world and investing in commercial shipyards. His vision has, I believe, broad application. For example, in the Indo-Pacific region, I think we can continue to develop a networked cooperative framework that enhances defense industrial output by working with allies and partners to de-risk supply chains and advance our ability to engage in co-production, co-development, co-sustainment, maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Honestly, we must modernize command and control relationships, build much deeper connectivity across alliances, and foster real defense industrial cooperation. One of the ways I see the department working closely with the Navy, or with OSD working closely with the Navy, is in our shared commitment to deterring potential adversaries beyond just our military concerns. The recent formation of the Maritime Economic Deterrence Executive Council, or MEDEC, is at the forefront of the larger DoD deterrence effort on adversarial investments. I congratulate Secretary Del Toro and the Navy on this initiative, which I believe will really support technology and innovation investments, secure trade routes for supply chains, and deflect intellectual property theft that challenges the economies of the United States, our allies, and our international partners. And I say that emphasizing that as part of my remit, I also lead the department's work with the Committee on Foreign Investment, or CFIUS. So I am seeing really at the forefront how the need for better economic deterrence efforts by the department to combat adversarial investments is necessary. In closing, I will say that where we are today in 2024 is similar in some ways to where the United States was in 1938. Back then, we had expansionist regimes working to project their dark ideologies on the free peoples of the world. There was a land war in China. It started in 1931, and Germany annexed Austria. Czechoslovakia was partitioned, and Sudetenland was ceded to Germany. The world situation looked absolutely bleak. There are, I believe, significant differences to today. First and foremost, our military is in much better shape than it was in 1938. We have the most preeminent military in the world. Never forget that. When we had fewer than 188,000 soldiers in the entire U.S. Army, and we didn't even have an Air Force then. Second, and very importantly, I believe America is working now to confront the threats that we face. The vision to re-energize our industrial power is very much at the core of the National Defense Industrial Strategy. Congress gave us key funding for investments in this fiscal year with the FY24 defense appropriations. We have billions more planned for FY25, and we are in the process of planning for FY26 and FY27 now. The services, along with our international partners, are working hard to re-energize their parts of the industrial base. But keep in mind that it took us almost 5 more years from 1938 to 1943 before U.S. industry was really moving in all cylinders. And that's when ships, tanks, and aircraft were far less sophisticated, complex, and capable than they are today. They could also be built largely using materials readily available in the United States. But with our strategy and the commitment shown by the department's leadership, by Congress, by the interagency, by you all, and others in industry and around the world, I am very optimistic and confident that we are on the right track. I absolutely believe in American ingenuity, determination, and the one thing that we do better than any other nation in the world: we step up, we rise to the occasion. We did it in 1776, we did it in 1860, we did it in 1917 and 1938, and make no mistake, we will do it again, and starting right now in 2024. Thank you again for your time and your attention, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all.